Hello YouTube and welcome back to my channel. I'm Patty and I go by Pattymac Makes everywhere online. In today's video, I would like to talk with you a little bit about making a quilt project together. Usually when I share a quilting style project, it's a tutorial. I just kind of go through the steps of how to make the block or the project or whatever it is. I present it to you and then you go about your business and you make it as you wish. Allow me to introduce you to the Power of 3 row quilt. Now, a row quilt is a quilt that has the same block in a whole row. So a lot of times when we make a quilt, it's like we alternate things, or maybe we just do the same block over and over. This type of quilt is more of like a sampler, so you'll get to make several blocks. And what we'll do is we'll make 4 of each of the blocks that I will present to you, and that will make a row. And for this quilt, we will make 4 12.5-inch blocks for each row, and it has 5 rows. So when this is done, you will have learned how to make 5 new quilt blocks. I designed this quilt to be a way for you to experiment with color. So my thought process on calling this project the Power of 3 is that we could use a triadic color scheme to design this quilt. I've talked with you before about using color wheels and how I really like red, yellow, and blue, and I fall back on red, yellows, and blues all the time. It always looks good because it is a color principle as defined by looking on our color wheel. I shared a video with you recently about some quilting items that I picked up on Amazon, and this color wheel is one of those items. And I really like this wheel because it has like spinning dials to help you really zero in on what you want to do. And on the back of it, it has this really nice setup, and it gives you a lot of information in the center. And so it will tell you exactly how to determine your triadic colors. Triadic means 3. So in color theory, you can see it's blue, and then it comes down to the red, and then over to the yellow. And that is my triadic that I'm going with. Another one, and this seems kind of weird, but the color wheel says it works. So the other version that you could do would be, believe it or not, violet, orange, and green. How crazy is that? Okay, so anyway, the color wheel. This will be your best friend, and it's just good to have. And I will link this one for you below. Anyway, by focusing on 3 colors, it gives you a chance to really practice with using your color wheel and finding those color harmonies that work. And it's not too much information, because sometimes the block designs can be pretty complicated and get into just multitudes of color. And with this one, we just stick to picking 3 and a background. So you only have 4 fabrics that you have to deal with. Your 3 colors and your background. As I said, the blocks are designed to be 12.5-inch blocks, which is a really good standard size for a block. So we'll be working to doing finished 12.5-inch blocks, and then in between each block we will have 2.5-inch strips that we will cut from the background fabric to be our sashing. So I tried to do all round numbers and keep the cutting pretty simple. Okay, so how is this going to work? I'm so glad that you asked. So what I'm going to do is each week I'm going to post a tutorial video for you, and that will show you that week's block that we're going to make. And in the tutorial video, I will give you the cutting instructions and show you how to physically make one block. If you decide that you want to go ahead and make it as part of the overall quilt, then I will have a link to the to my website and blog, and over there I'll give you the cutting instructions so that you can make all 4 of them. So all of those cutting instructions will be on the website for you. So if you decide that you want to make the full quilt, then each week's instructions will be over there for you. I'm going to give these instructions to you by the row so that if you do want to do the quilt along, I'm assuming if you're still watching, you probably do. So you're going to get the cutting instructions on the website to do the single row. That way it's not too many instructions at once. And what I want you to do is I want you to each week complete the entire row. So you'll make your 4 blocks, you'll cut your sash, and you will sash all of the blocks in that row together so that when the week is finished, before the next video comes out or the next project block video comes out, you'll have that whole row done. So that's the goal. And so each week you're going to, from start to finish, make an entire row. My thought process in doing it this way is to only give you a little bit at a time so that you're not overwhelmed, it doesn't feel like too much, and that you can then do this entire row basically in your spare time during the course of the week. So you can cut one night, the next day you can start sewing blocks. It might take you a couple of days to do all of the blocks, and then on the last day you can just sash everything together. And if you have quiet time, you can actually get this done over the course of a weekend. So the block construction will go on for the next 5 weeks. So each week we'll have a new design that we'll make together, and then at the conclusion of the 5th week, you're going to have almost your entire quilt top finished. Then in week 6, what we will do is put on the borders, and then we'll make our quilt sandwich and do the quilting. So 6 is kind of a big week. So it'll be, basically finishing the quilt top, doing the quilt sandwich, and the quilting. And the very last week, we'll put the binding on. And I have a way that I've been doing my binding recently that I think is way easier and a lot more friendly. And I'm going to share that tip, several tips and tricks with you in week 7. So you'll definitely want to be subscribed to the channel. You're going to want the notifications on. And I would also suggest that you make sure that you go to the website and sign up for the email list, because I do email. Make sure that you sign up for the email list, because I will email you each week when the new instructions are ready, and then you won't miss anything. Let me tell you a little bit more about this quilt project. I designed it to be a skill builder project. And the hardest thing that you're going to make is the half square triangle. That's it. If you haven't made half square triangles, I will link over to a tutorial. I have a video tutorial here on my YouTube channel, and then I have another written tutorial, a couple of them actually, that I recommend you take a look at those also. I'll link to that below. Practice a little bit with those ideas if you haven't made the HST blocks before, and just kind of get comfortable. And then when you jump into making this quilt, by the time you're done, you're going to be a pro. And if you're already experienced with making HSTs, then this is like smooth sailing. Okay, this will just be like a really fun distraction. And I have to tell you something, guys. I need a distraction. I have been so stressed out about all of the stuff that's going on and trying to figure out what is true and not true and what's happening. It's very hard to block it out, and I have been super distracted for a long time. And to be honest with you, I need this project as much or maybe more than you need it. I need to get back onto some kind of a structure, and this felt like a really nice structured way for me to start and finish a project, and to get back into the hang of making regular project tutorials and interacting with you again, because I have just been sort of, I don't know, having a little trouble. So thank you for sticking out all of this last couple of months with me. I really appreciate it. Okay, so HST blocks. If you're not really accustomed to making them, by the time you have finished this quilt top, you're going to be a pro, I promise. Something else that I wound up doing was I mixed in several like classic quilt blocks. And you know, I like the classics. I think that they're a good foundational block that everybody should know how to make, and they turn up all the time in multiple designs. So things like shoe fly and churn dash and sawtooth stars, all of those things will turn up over and over and over just across the spectrum in other quilters projects. So it's a really good idea that you learn to recognize them by sight so that you already have an idea of how those are going to go together, and that you just learn how to make them. You know, there are a couple of different ways to make like a sawtooth star. The one that I'm going to share with you is going to be all half square triangles. So that's the method that we will use for this particular quilt. But I think it's good to understand the construction on these basic blocks, these classic blocks, and it's a nice way to sort of pay homage to the quilters that came before us, our grandmothers and grandmothers' grandmothers and all of that. So when this quilting journey is complete, I will have a printed pattern available that will have all of the instructions, all of the yardage. I might actually include a couple of sizes in it. So it'll be a printed pattern, and I will have that available in my Etsy shop as a paid for pattern. So if you want to have all of the instructions in one place, then that would be a way to do it. But as I'm going to structure this make along for us, it will be each week something new, video here and a blog post with the math and the particulars that you're going to need. But when I design and complete that PDF document, everything will be in one place. And I think that's handy. And that will be my first official paid for quilt pattern. I'm excited. Okay, let me get you started. Let me just give you an idea of the yardage that will go into this quilt. And I'm going to read from my notebook so I don't mess it up. And I'll also tell you, when I figure my yardage, I always round up. I round up a little bit because, you know, I make mistakes. So I might cut something wrong, and then I'll need to recut a strip. And if I have not added a little bit of extra, guess what? I'm going to wind up short. And nobody wants to go through that. You don't want to get down to your last row or putting the border on your quilt. You're almost done, and then you're short. That is what we call a drag. Okay, so all of these numbers are like sized up just a little bit. For your background, you're going to want 3 full yards. And I know it sounds like a lot. It is a lot. Then we're going to talk about color A. Color A and color B are your main colors that you're going to work with. So color A, in my case, is the red. I used a full yard. Color B, which is the blue in my case, took 2.5 yards. And the reason for that is I used color B also as my border. I also used color B to do my quilt binding. So it's like a tone on tone quilt binding. So it's just going to blend in with the quilt, which makes getting the binding on a little bit easier also. And you'll see why when we get there. If you want to do a different binding, you certainly can, and just get a yard of whatever you think you want to use for your binding. Color C, which is your accent color, you're going to need a full yard of that. And in my case, that was the yellow, the gold. For your backing fabric, you have a couple of options. If you go with the 42-inch standard quilting cotton for your background, you're going to want 4.5, you can go 5 if you want to be safe, yards. And then what you would do is wind up opening up that yardage and seaming it, and so that it's wide enough to cover the back of your quilt project. I have discovered wide back. Now, let me tell you, in Joann, they have a couple of different wide backs. I just recently found this. So they have the standard 108-inch, which is the really super wide back. That is a big piece of fabric. They also have some that is 90 inches. You only have to have one cut of fabric, which is really nice. If you go with the 90-inch wider back, then you'll need 2.5 yards. I want to give you a sneak preview of the very first block, and I think it's beautiful. I just worked on it and made it today. It's so pretty, and here it is. And it's the Sawtooth star, obviously. And I'm looking at it in the monitor, and it's so pretty. And you can see where I used the red, yellow, and blue, and then the white as my background. And I just felt like it was such a nice color harmony, and it worked really super well. I'll also tell you that in my red, the red that I picked out, I found one that had butterflies in it, and the yellow of the butterflies picked up in the yellow of the yellow fabric that I used. So they just kind of, that yellow echoes the other echo of the rays of the star. So I just think it's beautiful. So that's the first block, and if you want to see the rest of them, you're going to have to stay tuned and they will come up. Well, I did kind of give you a sneak preview of the illustration, so you kind of knew what's coming. But anyway, the way that we're going to work this quilt is I'm just going to work right down the rows. So get ready, get your fabric. All of this printed information on what you need is going to be linked below. You can find it on the website. So just head over there, and that will give you a little list that you can use to get what you need. Here's mine, and I just love it together. I will tell you, when you are picking out your reds, because I went with the triadic and it has the yellow in it, I wanted a warmer red. So let me just tell you, when you're looking at your reds, well, really when you're looking at all of these fabrics, you want to be mindful of the value, so how light or dark the particular fabric is, and you want to sort of be cognizant of undertones. And so this red is a very nice warm red, and I liked the warm red with the gold. That just suited my design aesthetic better. When you go look at your reds in person, what you'll find is most of them are skewed very cool. So they're mostly a cool red, which means they have a little more of a blue tone in them. That can also work. What I'm just saying to you is that be aware of it. And when you're matching and picking out all of your fabrics, be mindful of the value of everything in terms of light and dark, the undertones, all of that, and also be mindful of the scale of the prints. And so, you know, the largest thing I have are these butterflies, but they balance well with this, which is kind of like wheat. And then this, I don't know, this is almost like a little, like a crocodile skin. And then this is a tone on tone with little flowers. So I just felt like all of that really worked well together. And then for my backing, I just went with a like a navy that sort of matches this. It was just plain. And I went with that because it was the 90 inches of yardage, so one cut and I'm done. No seaming, and also it was on sale. So if you do your shopping in Joann, and I would suggest do it in Joann when they have the sale. Now they just had all of the quilting cottons on sale. That's when I got these. I paid $3.99 a yard, and that's enough. And but it was good because I wanted to go and pick specifically for this project so that I could have the color harmony that I really wanted for the project. You can certainly pull from your stash. Don't feel like you can't do that. Of course you can. And I encourage you to do that. But I just knew for my purposes, I really wanted something fresh that I picked out for everything to go together. And that's what I did. That is today's video. That is the information that I have for you to get you started and moving along with this new project. And I hope that you are as excited about it as I am. If you feel like you need a palette cleanser from the world, this could be the project you're looking for. I just have to tell you, when I got that Sawtooth star put together, I just did it like an hour ago, right before I had my lunch, and oh, it's so pretty. It's just so beautiful. So Anyway, I will give you some tips and tricks in the blog post for how to place your colors so that you have the most, let's just say, happiness and satisfaction with the way things lay out. I would say that what you might want to try if you feel a little unsure about it, mirror sticking like your color A where I put my color A, put your color B where I put my color B, and so on. And just try doing that and see how that works out for you as a full project. And I think you'll be surprised at how well it works out. If you have questions, as always, drop them below. And let me just leave you with this one last thought. I do have a Facebook group. I'm not great at managing it, and I'm not great at telling you about it, but I do have one. And I'll give you a link for that also. And if you want to share your blocks and your progress, ask questions, all of that kind of stuff, the Facebook group is a really great place to do that. YouTube is good for a lot of stuff. YouTube is not great for community interaction. It just is not. It's very hard for me to keep up with comments and to communicate effectively with you. It's kind of frustrating, but it is what it is. But the Facebook group, it's a little more conducive to sharing and to making some friends and doing all that kind of stuff. So if that is appealing to you, then I will invite you to also sign up. You'll have to, I'll have to approve you because I don't let just anybody in. It's a closed group because, people are crazy. So we like to keep those people out. No offense if you're crazy, but we don't need any more crazy in our lives right now. Because honestly, there's just enough crazy. There's more than enough crazy to go around, and I don't want that when I'm doing my quilting and sewing projects. And I certainly don't want to see it when I go into my Facebook group, and I'm sure that you can relate to that. Okay, that's it. I'm really done. I'm sorry this was so long. I was so afraid that this would be such a short video and it wouldn't have anything to talk about. And look at what I've done. Okay. The next video that will come up will be the block tutorial. So stay tuned for that. I'm really excited to share it with you. Coming up soon. And yeah, I guess that's all I have for you. So thanks for watching. And as always, happy quilting, and I will see you in the next video.